Welcome to episode 2 of the BCB podcast. First one went really well. I was pleasantly surprised by how everyone took it.
Definitely.
Yeah, had the same reservations as I always do of like, who's going to want to listen to us? But seemingly people liked it.
Had many compliments on the finger guns, so I'm gonna holster them this time.
Yeah, it seems to be like a new habit that you form now. You're putting yourself on camera more.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed that I've tried to be on Instagram the stories a bit more, just so it builds up a little bit of confidence being on camera and not being as awkward. So I hope today it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah. Will, what story was it? Because Liam has all of a sudden developed the finger guns thing, and there was a story that you were recording in the office.
It wasn't the last one; it was the one before. It was to say about. Was it the Christmas opening hours?
Yeah, it might have been Christmas. Yeah, I think it was Christmas opening hours. And you recorded it all. It was perfect. If you haven't done it, it's actually kind of challenging to
hold a camera in front of your face and see yourself talking, because you're like, who is this spud talking back at me?
Yeah.
It's quite daunting. But do you remember when we went on that sales course? Mm. And I think I spent about half an hour trying to do a recording, and I still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other day I was trying to record a video of me just saying like we're doing reduced hours for Christmas, and I think I did like 30 takes, and in the end Lewis had to literally hold my arms behind my back because I couldn't stop myself going.
Yeah, and like you had a few at the end that were perfect. You did them like just right, and then you just like finish off and just go,
see you later.
Why have I done it? Oh, but it's weird though, because you do feel strangely under pressure, don't you, when you first start
100%
recording yourself. I remember I'm a lot more comfortable with it than I used to be. But even so, I find like an Instagram story harder than something like this. Yeah. I find this is it is more casual, whereas in a story you've got to be kind of concise.
You need to relay that information across like as soon as possible, because I mean people's attention span is minimal that we do say, but just to keep them locked in for those few seconds. So you need to make sure that everything is completely right, and you can't be fucking around with finger guns, basically. So hopefully no finger guns today.
I think it'll happen. So
I say that like I've already done a finger guns, but ironically it wasn't because I was nervous.
Yeah, there we go. So today is New Year's Eve for us. You'll probably be listening to this a couple of days after. Depends how quickly I can turn this around. So obviously we've all just had Christmas, and lots and lots of food and drink.
Lots of cheese.
Yeah, copious amounts of cheese. That's one thing I actually thought would be something handy to talk about. I know everyone will be through it, but this year I've probably let myself relax at Christmas more than I have at any other, in terms of the amount of shit that I've eaten and alcohol that I've drank, and I've barely trained as well. And I was kind of like, I'm just going to enjoy it, and and don't get me wrong, it has been nice, but I actually think that eating crap and not looking after yourself is somehow more tiring than
100%
than looking after yourself.
It is like a full-time job eating shit, because there's no nutritional value. You don't get any longevity in your energy that you have. It's literally just like spikes. You get like really nice endorphin. Your sugar rush hits, and then you crash, and then you're fucked. Yeah.
That's literally how I've been feeling, and I've been rolling with it, but it feels way worse. Like genuinely, people who think that like looking after yourself and exercising and eating well is effort, it's not as hard as being like eating shit and being lazy. Like weirdly enough, like it requires more conscious effort, but you actually feel like way more switched on. You've got way more energy, and I knew this, but like actually doing it, it's only been like a week or so, but it's drastic. Like I feel like I'm operating at like 50% capacity. I'm tired like all the time. And I don't know, it's not for me. Like, don't get me wrong, a day or two of indulging yourself can be really nice, but I don't think I'm going to bother like going this extreme again. Because as well, even like I love cheese. If anyone doesn't know me, I absolutely love cheese, but I'm lactose intolerant, so those two things don't go well together. So I've been abusing my lactose tablets and eating about a kilo of cheese a day for a good few days.
Well, Christmas Day, everyone left the table, didn't they? And then me and you were sat across like now.
Yeah.
But just imagine there are 7 or 8 different cheeses And we're just literally going through each one and going, that one's quite nice.
Yeah.
And, I like the port in this one.
Yeah.
I was just like having a proper tasting session with cheese. But to which I turned to you like halfway through and went, have you had your lactose tablet? She was like, nope, got to pay for this later.
Yeah. And the thing was, and it was good, but the novelty definitely wore off fairly quickly. Like after like the second or third day of eating a lot of cheese, and cheese is something that I love, and I don't really ever have throughout the year, bar like a little bit on something.
I think it's like well, not a tradition, but I think people come into the mindset of Christmas is a time to indulge, isn't it? It is going to be one time in the year to indulge and something to look forward to. It's Christmas. Everyone's off work. Everyone's got more stuff going on. Like there's a bit more festivities, and also like all the supermarkets are marketing the shit out of eat some crappy food.
Yeah.
Eat this thing that is loaded with sugar. Like, don't get me wrong. Like my diet is like atrocious, and my training is like falling off the bandwagon, especially since I've had a little baby. Like, but that's not a dig. I love spending time with my baby, and it is more on me that I want to spend more time with my baby than I do want to be training. However, I know my body is like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, there's always priorities. Training's never should be the number one priority for anybody, unless you're a professional athlete and your entire career life rotates around it. And even then, I'd probably argue that it shouldn't be. But like, you choose what's important at the time. And I think having such abundance of crap, like you just don't actually appreciate it that much. A few people I was talking to, like a couple of weeks ago now, actually, were talking about how frequently they're having takeaways, and I was like, "Do you even enjoy them?" And they're like, "Oh, they're just
easy."
Yeah, it's just easy. And I was like, when I have a takeaway, I would like look forward to it, and I probably have a takeaway every 2-3 weeks, something like that. And I always really look forward to it because it is easy and convenient. I haven't got to cook, or Emma hasn't got to cook. But normally, it's something you're going to order something that you can't cook yourself or can't cook as well.
Yeah, something that's going to take like quite a bit of an effort. So, like if you go for a curry, something like that, you want something that's like proper made from scratch, not from a jar.
Yeah, because obviously you can definitely tell the difference with that. So, yeah, and I think so many people are in the habit of just doing what's easy.
But it's very much a vicious cycle. So, like you said, like eating shit makes you feel less energized. You don't have as much energy. So then you order a takeaway because you haven't got enough energy to cook, and you eat more shit. So then you're just cycling down and down and down. And it is a really, especially if you've been in it for a while, it's really hard to break the habit to pull yourself out and make that change. Because like just before lockdown, like I lost like 7 or 8 kilos, something like that. I felt brilliant, and then I don't know. It just shit happened, and I think that's when I hurt my toe. Yeah, and that I went through a phase where everything was hitting my toe, even after I had an operation on it. I was still dropping shit on my toe.
Yeah,
like,
it seemed to be like a magnet. Like it was ridiculous. Like you never, as long as I've known you, it never hit your toe until you had that injury, and then every other day you were like dropping something on your foot or stubbing your toe on something. Yeah,
I think it was like the day after I had the operation. I was moving the tyres out of the way to Hoover, and I pushed it. No, I went to flip it out of the way, and it caught the edge of the Astro, bounced back, and landed directly onto the toe. And I was in so much pain, but it was just there was literally like everything else around me. It could have gone everywhere, but it just hit that toe.
Yeah. So again, there's going to be ups and downs, isn't there? And I feel that with the low energy at the moment from all of the crap, because now I'm looking at our training plan that's going to start on Monday, and I'm like, oh dear God. but it is that, isn't it? You have to make that conscious effort. The hardest bit is always a cliche, isn't it? The hardest bit's like getting going when you start a new block of training, or if you've had a week off or had a month off or whatever. Like getting the ball rolling is always the most challenging part. And that's whether you're brand new or whether you've been training for years. Yeah, it's still just that building that momentum, because you're also those first couple of sessions back. If you have missed a bit of time, you're probably not going to do that well. You're not going to perform. If in your head you used to be able to lift X amount of weight or do X amount of time on a bike or whatever else, if you've not been doing it, there's a very, very high likelihood that your performance has dropped fairly substantially. Not to say that won't come back pretty quickly, but yeah. So also you've got physical. Oh, this is hard, but then mentally you're like, oh no, I feel so much weaker, or I feel so much, I'm so much less fit, or I'm so stiff now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they do initially fall off that bandwagon and then they decide to get back into the gym or go back into train or whatever it is, they then fall back out of the wagon because they're like, well, this is so much harder than before. I'm nowhere near where I was before because they've had that little break. And I think we see a lot of people doing this, like bouncing to and from because of that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think a big part of everything to do with exercise is just to trust the process. It's really hard to try and emotionally detach from what you're doing, because obviously everything that we do kind of creates some kind of an emotion. But it's easy for your emotions to like override logic, and logically, I'm pretty sure most people know if you come into the gym, you train consistently following a plan that's well laid out, that has basic principles in there, like, some form of progression, so you're doing more work over time.
And you're confident in doing those movements.
Yeah, and you're looking after your diet to a certain degree, you're at least kind of keeping a loose eye on your calories and your protein intake. You should see fairly substantial changes in your body over, weeks, months. But sometimes emotionally, you almost can tell yourself, oh, it's just not, nothing's happening, I'm not changing.
So I think it's really important as well to remember why you're doing it in the first place. So I think it is in Atomic Habits that they say that it's like the lesser of two evils. So you can either wake up, go train now, and it will suck a little bit. But for the long-term goals of it all, you're going to live longer, you're going to be happier because you've got the quality of life, especially when you're in your 50s and 60s. If you're able to get about and move, you're going to be a lot happier than if you have to brace yourself to sit down. Maybe that's in your 70s or 80s, but it's still the same point. And then if the other side of it is you enjoy yourself, enjoying quotation marks, you don't train now, you then suffer later on down the line, so you're not able to get around as quickly. You are bracing yourself to sit down, because I remember my granddad, and he was in his 70s or something like that, and he literally to get himself out of a chair looked like a hard session in the gym. It was a full-on brace. He had to push himself up with his arms and get up that way, and by the time he did pass away, he couldn't do that. He needed to have an assisted chair to get up. I'm not saying that training now is going to be that answer when you're in your 80s, but having that level of fitness throughout your life is going to be a lot better than just slobbing out and then hoping that you'll be all right when you're later on in life. Yeah,
well, the answer is you won't be. If you don't do anything, you almost certainly will not be in good shape when you're older. You need to do something preventative. If you do care, most people don't, or most people think that they care, but it's too far away. And I think we can all be guilty of it. I probably should have a pension, right? But I don't. Because that's too far away. But then Emma, she's had a pension for years. She's pretty organised. She thinks ahead, plans ahead, and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I still do. There's multiple reasons right now why I want to train, but then there's also other reasons again in the future, like being more active and mobile when I'm older, having less issues. That's something that I do prioritise. But the idea of delayed gratification is probably the biggest hold up for people getting into training, because you go to the gym, you train really hard, you leave the gym and you still look exactly the same, other than maybe a bit sweatier and you might have a tiny bit of a pump. But chances are, if you're just starting, your body fat's probably too high to even see that pump. So you've literally just killed yourself for an hour, 2 hours, whatever you've just done, and you look exactly the same. So as far as there's a bit of a disconnect. You've got to do that work consistently for maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe a couple of months before you can actually see those changes. And on the other side of things, you go and eat a shitload of cheese, and you feel good because the cheese tastes nice and it was quite pleasurable and you enjoyed that experience. Yeah. But you're not fat. You're not fat overnight. Nothing's changed. You haven't gained weight. You might have already been fat, but there's not been an instant change. You've got to do silly stuff like that over and over again for that to actually accumulate, for then you to gain weight that's going to be noticeable over time. So again, there's that delay, and that disconnect in your action and the consequence is why habits are really hard to form good ones, because generally anything worth doing takes a little bit of time to achieve. It's like trusting that process for long enough. You've just got to like know that it's all right. I'm gonna get through it. I've just got to follow the process. I'm made of the same things as everybody else. All the people that are in the gym training hard consistently, and they might look a bit better than me, or they might be a bit stronger than me. They're just a little bit further ahead than I am. It's a real mind fuck, isn't it? Really, and
I think it's a lot like learning to drive a car or learning to drive a bike, ride a bike, isn't it? It's like when you first start off, you suck, you don't really see any difference. But then you have all these people later on down the line, when you've got your license as well, you're able to go and drive wherever you want. But at the beginning, you didn't know what you was doing. But the longevity is you consistently had those lessons every other day, every week, whatever it would be. And at the end of it, you're able to drive a car. So it's a bit like that when you're training. It's like you have to put the effort in over and over and over again for you to see that end product and where you want to be.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. To be fair, the emotional aspect does make it a bit more complicated though. With a lot of people, their self-esteem is very much wrapped up in how they look. And if they feel like they're too skinny or they're too big, that then puts them down, which can sometimes be a hindrance in getting the ball rolling. But in terms of practicality, I guess, so we've kind of gone around this a fair bit now. Just trust the process. There's so much information out there, so many good plans. Especially if you're new to training, most people that are new to training, you can do pretty much anything.
As long as you're doing something.
Yeah, as long as you're doing something. If you don't walk much, if you just go out and walk a little bit more, try and track your steps. Pretty much every phone now has got like one of those pedometer things built in, so it can track your steps.
Yeah, you can get like a cheap Fitbit or something like that for like 20, 30 quid, and literally that stays in your arm all day. You don't even have to have your phone in your pocket. So like if you're walking around the house, if you're going out, go to a park or something like that, just pick a small trail, do it. And if you like nature or if you like being outside as well, you get sucked into it and you won't notice that you are walking so much because you'll be enjoying seeing the sights. Yeah,
well, one of our coaching clients, before he got started, because right when he spoke to us, he was about to go on holiday for a week or two, I can't remember. So the coach actually reached out to him and said, look, you're going on holiday. Right now, his step count, I think he said he was averaging between 500 and 1,000 steps a day, so a very low step count. And he was going away with the family. It was nice and scenic, so he said, oh yeah, we'll probably go out and do some walks. So we set them a target of trying to get that step count up. We said, like, if you're only doing 500 to 1,000 now, see if we can get that to 2,000 plus. He actually ended up managing, like, probably averaging 5,000 to 6,000 a day, which is a huge improvement. And before he even got started with us, just while he was on holiday, which normally people would assume that that's where they're going to gain a bit of weight over holiday, but he'd already dropped a little bit of weight just from that, and actually felt quite a bit better just from going out and moving a lot more.
Yeah, get your blood pumping around your system.
Yeah, and like, I own a gym, so obviously I have a bias to kind of gym style training because I like the convenience of it and the diversity of it. There's a million different things that you can kind of do in here.
Yeah.
But if it is just overall general improvements to health, anything that's physically taxing in some capacity, whether it be dance or gardening or anything, it will make a huge difference, and just do it consistently. If you do something at least every other day for a month, you will see some kind of an improvement.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You can't not, unless you're eating a copious amount of food on top of what you was already eating.
Yeah, I was going to say,
time you're going to go backwards.
Yeah, assuming if everything else stayed the same, if you eat, even if you eat shit, but then if you start to add in some exercise, that should at least mitigate some of it, so you're not going to gain any more weight. It should level things out, and ideally, if your weight's already stable, you should actually start to lose weight from that little bit of exercise. Yeah. So don't overcomplicate things, don't stress too much about it, and don't worry that you're not seeing results straight away, because nobody does. Or there's always maybe the 1%ers who see really, really fast results, but that wasn't me. That wasn't
still
you.
Right. Like, I think for a lot of people, it's other people see your results before you do, because you're doing it day after day. You're looking in the mirror looking for those results, and because you're only comparing yourself to the day before, whereas someone's not seeing you in a few weeks, be like, well, shit, Liam's trained quite a bit.
It just reminded me when you came, when we reopened after lockdown, and a load of members saw you again, and they're like, oh, damn, you look really good, what have you been doing?
Yeah. Because it literally looked like it was just a case of, it didn't matter how I did it, it was just an extra 400 calories burn on top of whatever I was doing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was just literally like, if I wanted to go on the bike, if I wanted to go for a walk, Stairmaster, whatever it was just a case of, during your daily thing, make sure you do 400 calories every day. Yeah. And then I was tracking calories, what I was eating. Yeah. And it wasn't a case that I was changing my diet, it was just a case that I was more mindful of what I was eating. I was burning an additional 400 calories than what I normally would do, and then doing some strength training at the same time.
Yeah, and as soon as you start tracking as well, because I remember you saying this, you started to like think twice about snacks. When you'd be like, when you do 400 calories on a bike, and then you'd look at a chocolate bar and be like, oh,
that's 180 calories. I need to be on the bike for like 20 minutes just to burn that off and be in the same situation I am now.
Yeah.
I can just mitigate it now and then be done with it.
Yeah, it gives a bit of accountability, and it gives, because like when you look at calories, and if you don't do anything that burns calories actively, it's irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? You've got no gauge. It's like when you talk to somebody about like, oh, bench press 300 kilos. If you say that to a random person, they don't know what 300 kilos is. They don't know if that's good or bad. They don't like, it's irrelevant. Yeah. So same kind of thing. 180 calories, which is like, oh, you're allowed like 2,000, 3,000 a day. So that's not a lot. But then if you've actually got to go and burn that, and that person's then on the bike for 15, 20 minutes, and then I was like, shit, this was actually not worth it at all.
I had to really want that chocolate bar to actually eat it. But I think for me, that was a really handy tool, just because I'm a very visual learner. So like you said, writing 2,000 calories down, yeah, you got loads of it. But for me, it's just saying, well, if I have that now, it's just going to sit there, and I'm not going to be any better off. Give me a little bit of a sugar spike, and then I'll be done with it. Yeah. Or I can save it up, because I think what I was doing, I was not having cheat days, but just having days where I could burn a few more. So I would save like 20-30 calories a day, and then the end of the week I could have a guilt-free chocolate bar, and that was my treat, so it was something to work towards.
Yeah, and I think that's also quite important as well, with people that do start restricting. You can go all in and be like, right, no chocolate all month, or no whatever your thing is, and often it just ends up making you crave it more, and then the likelihood of a binge is a little bit higher. So allowing yourself like a little bit of what you like, not probably every day, but yeah, whether it is once a week or something like that, it's got to be built in. It's got to fit into your total calorie goals and your macros. But actually allowing yourself a bit of that thing.
Yeah, so I think that with the cold turkey approach, it's like it's done with the best intentions, but it's had such a high failure rate that it just doesn't work for a lot of people. I'm not saying it's not going to work for anyone, but for a lot of people, it's people like quitting smoking, people who cut cold turkey, they have that overwhelming craving. That's why they've like brought out vapes, and they brought out like nicotine patches and chewing gum and the fake cigarettes just to kill the habits and stuff like that. Yeah. There's a reason that all those products were brought out, because the craving's so hard to get rid of, and also it's another way for them to get money. But
but the idea of tapering down
is much more effective.
Yeah, it is in terms of people's success, because there is certain situations where the cold turkey thing can work quite well, but it's normally when it's out of our control. So cold turkey can work quite well. For example, with people that go to rehab because they literally do not have access to the drugs. Yeah. So during that time, it's really tough, but can get them out of that habit very quickly, or can at least break that pattern very quickly. The problem is when they then leave rehab, they would go back into an environment where they all of a sudden do have access again. That's where the failure rate comes in. So I think it was also in Atomic Habits where they were talking about, this was during like the Vietnam War, and a load of American soldiers had actually been using heroin, like a ridiculously high number, 70% of the soldiers had at least tried heroin once, if not had been using it fairly consistently. So there was a huge program put out there to try and look after these soldiers, because at that point everyone thought heroin was like, once you've had it once, you're addicted to it for the rest of your life. There's no going back on it. And obviously nowadays we know a little bit more. It's still probably, you know, the hardest drug to kick, but at that point everyone thought it was impossible. And when they actually had all the soldiers come back from Vietnam, the actual rate of people, I think it was like 95, within a year, 95% of the people hadn't touched heroin again, and then within another 5 years, 95% of those hadn't. So there was, you know, there's still a percentage of people that did. But mostly it was because they're completely out of the environment. They don't know anybody who takes heroin anymore because they're not in Vietnam. They don't have access to it, or definitely not as easy access when they've gone back to their, you know, whatever state that they lived in. And maybe heroin at the time probably wasn't that easy to get hold of, probably didn't have the connections to it. They're probably back with their family and their friends, who all would have been probably shocked and disappointed at that kind of behaviour, opposed to over there at the time it was fairly normal. So that's where the cold turkey approach could work, but that's really extreme. Do you know what I mean? If I was like, right, I'm really out of shape, I'm really unhealthy, I'm going to go and move country, I'm going to join a gym, I'm going to create a whole other personality, basically, a different persona of a fitter and healthier version of myself, then maybe that could work. But realistically, that's not a practical approach for most people. You're still going to hang around with your same friends, your same family members, you're going to be at work in the same job, you're going to have the same lifestyle. So that's why the step-by-step baby steps approach does seem to be a bit more achievable.
Yeah, and just putting stuff, doing little stuff to help snap your brain out of like the same habit of doing it over and over again. So like putting stuff in easy access. So like if you've got all your chocolate bars and chocolates and crisps and stuff like that on eye-level shelf in your cupboard, when you open the door, that's the first thing you see, that's the first thing you grab. If you're moving it to somewhere that you literally have to get like a step ladder out to go get it, it's going to snap your brain into doing that mundane, I just need a quick snack, I'm going to grab this. It would be a case of, I really need that, I'm going to get my step ladder and go get it. So that putting like fruit and like low calorie snacks or something like that in your eye level, if it is just a quick grab, that'll be the thing you grab. But if you do want that chocolate, not saying don't have it, just put it in somewhere that is going to be more thought processing. Do I actually need that? Do I actually want that?
Yeah, exactly. Just putting that little bit of a barrier to entry does make you think about things a bit more thoroughly, opposed to just doing stuff on a whim. And really, that's the issues. That's where things happen. You know, you might be planning to go to the gym later, but on a whim, you know, you see something pop up on Netflix and you're like, oh fuck it, I'll stick this on instead. I'll go later, and you don't. Or you grab that chocolate bar or whatever it is. And I think it's easy to kind of fall into those little traps, but it isn't as complicated as some people want to make it out to be. I think a lot of people have got the tools to do it themselves. But it's the accountability, it's the pressure, and also the learning side of things. Because if you don't have that mentality of this is a process, it's, you know, there's no perfect one size fits all answer. If you get into training, anyone who's going to have any kind of longevity in being fit and healthy, you've got to have that mindset of, I don't have all the answers and I probably never will, but I'm going to keep paying attention. I'm going to keep trying to make improvements. I'm going to keep trying to learn about me and what works better for me. And if you've got that mindset, then you'll do really well. It's one of the reasons I find people like gamers tend to actually do really well with training.
See it as like a level up situation down there. Like, I can get to a 50 kilo bench, I can get to a 70 kilo bench, get to a 100 kilo bench. Because it makes it addictive, because that same process of like getting to that next level or getting these achievements or doing these things, like a lot of people that play games fairly consistently can be slight completionists in certain aspects. And often they might feel like, you're quite lazy because you don't get up and do anything other than play games. But it's more just the personality traits are there. It's just orientating them towards something a bit more productive. And like, you know, yourself, Guy, both like big gamers. Guy especially, he's like
a massive completionist,
Yeah.
and he's brilliant to work with from a training point of view, because you just tell him to do it and he just does it, because he knows that I just follow this process and then I get this result.
Yeah.
And so I think often people that maybe don't think that they've got the right stuff to be a trainer or somebody who trains, like, I think you'd probably be surprised.
Yeah, definitely just giving it a go and just sticking with it. Like, minimum, give it 3 months. Like, if you get a big game, just going back to the gaming thing, if you get a big game, you can play it for an hour and you're not really going to get a taste of it. Or playing it for 10 hours over a day. 10 hours over like a week or so, you are going to get more of a taste of what you're actually going to get.
Yeah. Right, I feel like we've done this topic now, but I thought, because we mentioned it before in the first podcast about potentially getting some members on or some other members of staff, so you can kind of get to learn a little bit about their story, some of the coaches and how they train and what they like to do. So if anyone's got any suggestions of what you want to see, if you're on YouTube, you can put it in the comments, or if on Instagram, or just drop us a DM. Any bits of information on what you want to know, what you want to see, because obviously this is for you. We want to put the content out that you want to see. So yeah,
and we'll get them on, and then if this goes well, we'll get a better table.
Yes, yeah, we'll upgrade from the
from the gerbil.
Yeah, from the plyo box. So yeah, let us know if you've got any specific questions. If it isn't necessarily I want to see this person. If you've got questions about the gym, about training, about us, again, ask us. Drop it in the comments. Just gives us some stuff that we can work with when we're building these out, because we don't have any plan. We never have a plan. We just make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
Same as
it's what we do best.
Yeah, exactly. Just winging it. There is one other thing that I do want to talk about, which I feel will probably do us for the rest of the session. Okay. But it's something that's gone on fairly recently, and it's about lifting cues. If you don't know what a cue is, it's basically when somebody's performing some form of lift, they'll be normally given this by a coach or somebody who's working with them, and it's a verbal instruction that's going to help them with the movement. So it might be something like tucking your elbows when you're benching, or it might be something like forcing your hips through at the lockout of a deadlift. Things like that.
Or pushing your heels through the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or trying to pull the bar apart when you're benching. There's a million different cues, and they all tend to work differently for different people. And when you're a coach, that's actually quite a challenging skill to learn, because how people interpret things obviously is different. How people learn is different, and when you work with somebody, you can't always just get hold of them and grab them and move them into positions. You need to explain it in a way that's going to click for them. And one cue could work for one person and not at all for somebody else, even though you're trying to get them to do the exact same thing. Yeah. So just how you actually structure that in a cue would be quite different. And also the fact that one cue for one person isn't necessarily going to be something that applies to everybody. Because generally cues are going to be an over-exaggeration.
Yeah, 100%.
Being me, depending on who it is I'm working with, I'll tend to use something quite over the top, just so it's quite a strong visual image of what you're trying to achieve, and a lot of coaches will do that kind of over-exaggeration, just to really hammer that point home, because generally the thing that you're giving that person a cue on is something that naturally they don't have much of an inclination. I can't talk. An inclination. I was going to say inclination. Yeah, so they don't have much of an inclination to do that instinctively.
It's like when I first started doing bench press with you, it was like explode off your chest.
Yes, yeah, because everything was always
like a tempo, because I was scared that I was going to drop it on me, so I was being really nervous about getting down, but then I wasn't exploding off the chest and pushing straight off.
Everything was very, it was nice and controlled, but you were almost were performing everything with a little bit of a tempo and with a little bit of a pause. And I remember you did it similar with squats as well. You instinctively started to basically pause squat, because you'd kind of be searching around for your depth, And then when you'd find it, you'd hang around there for a second before you actually started to come back out of the squat.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's kind of a common one. So with Liam, I really was, trying to cue him to be explosive off his chest. Whereas somebody else who already, moves the bar quite quickly off their chest, but they're potentially quite unstable because of it and they misgroove quite frequently, that's not the same cue that I would give them. So coaches have specific cues for specific people. So if your coach tells you a specific cue, it might not actually apply to everybody else that you're around.
And it could be quite dangerous if you're telling someone to explode off the chest, and like you said, if they're misgrooving all the time and they do that and they throw the bar off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it happens, that kind of stuff. So I think it's just one of them. You need to maybe just everyone try and have a good understanding of the what behind not just cues but training in general. Because again, same kind of principle apply just to general training. What one person's doing in the gym might be terrible for the next person.
Yeah, someone might be working around an injury, or they might have had like a scare, like a few weeks prior in a lift or something like that. They're just taking a little bit extra care. You don't know what their situation is.
Yeah.
If you've got some sort of tip from them and you think that they need it, then maybe approach them outside of the gym setting and have a conversation. But if you're doing it in the moment, some people get a bit like anxious about it, because it's kind of like, oh, what am I doing wrong? That everyone, they're watching me do it wrong. I must be doing something bad.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? That kind of how and when to give people advice. And I think fortunately it's not too bad here because we've got a much smaller community and most of the members know each other to a certain degree. But I know at commercial gyms that was always like a really
Common
weird,
thing,
it was a common thing, and it was always it never seemed to be done well.
And it seemed to be done out of a genuine care for that person. It was just some creepy guy across the gym's walking across and be like, "Did you know you did that wrong?"
Yeah, and often the person telling them what to do was wrong in the first place. Yeah, and I don't know, there's like what's it called? Have you heard the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
So I'm sure it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's basically when you're a beginner, you have there's a learning curve, and your level of confidence. It's basically your confidence and competence. So your confidence is extremely high, but your competence is extremely low, and you kind of have this spike when you're a beginner. In most things, it's why learners crash their car and newbies in the gym who've been training a year think that they're fucking they've got everything sussed out, and then they hurt themselves or they hurt somebody else because your confidence is really high because you've made some good progress, but you actually still don't know a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. If I remember, I'll get a little chart up of the Dunning-Kruger effect so you can actually have a little look at that.
Put it here.
Yeah. But then your confidence crashes and your competence is still fairly low, but it is improving. And according to the scale, your confidence never reaches that same level as it does when you're a beginner. And I feel like I had that with lifting. I think that's one, obviously, it's very applicable to us and what we do. But it is in pretty much all things, because you get cocky, you're just like, oh shit, I've got this figured out. And you make good improvements at the start because you go from being completely shit to being fairly competent. But in the grand scheme of things, you're still really early on in the journey and the experience. And again, well done if it's driving a car. You first got in that car and didn't know how to change gears and whatever else, and then by the end of it, you're able to change gears fairly smoothly, drive around town fairly smoothly. You're like, oh yeah, I've got this shit, and you start racing around, and hopefully you don't write your car off or hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. But learners crash all the time because they go through that phase. And even, put yourself in that car for another 5 years, you're going to be way more experienced. But are we going to be experienced as a rally driver? No, of course we're not. There's such in everything that we do, there is so many levels to skill that most of us will never ever step out of the range of average for most of those things. And that's okay. You don't need to. Average is fine. But yeah, just understanding that sometimes just because you think you've got it sussed out, it's not always the case, especially if you're only in your first year or so of lifting. And that's definitely not to discourage people from talking with other people, but just be very mindful and be extremely sure of what you're talking about before you.
I mean, even now, like I've been lifting with you. I've been lifting with you
Maybe later.
For a good few years, and like I struggle a lot with like imposter syndrome, and I always feel like I'm just flying off the seat of my pants, flying off the seam. Is it seam of my pants?
I don't know what they're saying. I know what you're on about, but off the seat of my pants. Whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, I always feel like I've got that imposter syndrome because I don't really know 100% of everything. But you're never going to know 100% of everything. No. It's just having a good understanding of some stuff that you are able to help out, and not being scared of asking for help or saying like, you know what, I don't know, but let me go ask someone that does, so you can get that proper information. Like whenever I'm in the gym, if someone comes over to me and says, oh, how do you do this specific movement? If I know what it is, but I don't know how to do it, but I've seen one of our coaches do it, I'll go ask them. Yeah. I'll be like, how do I do this? So I can give the right information to that person. And I will literally stand there with the person who's asked me, watching the coach how to do this. So then next time I can be like, oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I remember us having that conversation because I know we spoke about it earlier, didn't we? That you, like on the last podcast, you didn't come from a fitness background. Yeah. You know, you got into the gym pretty much only very briefly before starting working here. Yeah. And pretty much all of your educational training happened once you were in the gym. And I said, just like talk to the coaches. That's what they're for. Like I'm not a coach. I don't know everything about everything at all. Even though I've been lifting for years and I own a gym. Yeah. No one knows everything about everything. If somebody comes to me with a specific thing, again, if it was something a bit more niche, because you know I've got fairly broad spectrum of knowledge about training, but if it's something specifically like about Olympic weightlifting, I would not even I wouldn't even bother explaining. I would just be like, I'll go and speak with Connor and I can get back to you with an answer because he's far more knowledgeable than I am about this. Yeah. Or if it's something a bit more in depth on the nutrition side of things, and I think that's a really good quality to have, is to like not bullshit somebody when
know where your weaknesses are, but are able to work around them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not necessarily a weakness. I don't see that as a weakness at all. Like literally nobody knows everything about everything. No. So yes, you can have a load of information about training. That's one thing to actually avoid. If you see somebody who seems to have the perfect answer for everything, no matter how in depth you go and how broad the field seems to be, if they've got a solid answer for you, chances are they're talking out their arse. Yeah. A sign of somebody, and this is something that our coaches do when we've got a client who might have something really specific. They might have an illness that's got some kind of specific criteria or anything like that. And I will know that the coach will say, I'll go and do some more research and I'll get back to you about it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. Because that's how people learn, right? You get given something that you don't know, so then you go off and you look into it a little bit more. And you saying that you actually will then stand there with the
just sit there with my legs crossed,
sit on the floor. Yeah, you're going to stand there with whoever's asked the question and learn about it as well. That's literally the best way. And like, how much have you picked up over the last few years? It's ridiculous the amount that you've
just absorbed. Yeah, and that always helps me because, like you said, there's a lot of information on the internet that can help you, but it's finding the right answer specifically for you. And I always find that difficult, so I prefer to talk to someone face to face. So like you coaching me with my training and stuff like that, I would always prefer that over just having someone write me a program online and I go at it alone. Because if I've got a question in the moment, I'll probably like, well, I ain't going to fucking do it. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that and I'll try and find out the answer, but I probably won't because something else will come up. I'll move on to the next thing and I'll just won't do that thing, that movement or whatever it is. And then the next session when I come back to it, I'll be like, oh fuck yeah, I'll leave that again. And it's just like a gap in my program forevermore.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tough to work through things like that. I think having somebody there to guide you through is a big thing. But like I said, having somebody who is also willing just to like say, oh, I'm not sure, I can go and find out a little bit more about that for you.
I would much prefer it because then you have that confidence. Like you say, if someone knows all the answers, they're probably bullshitting you. But if someone to be like, no, I don't know that, but I will find out and come back to you, that projects more confidence for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've come across, because again, unfortunately, in this kind of industry, that's It does happen. It's the whole kind of, when you go to a mechanic and they're like, yeah, like,
that looks quite bad.
yeah, and you're like, I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know. I've just got to trust this person, and they're telling me that this is a big expensive repair, and it's exploiting a position of knowledge to kind of get something out of that situation, and I don't know. Sometimes in the fitness industry, that is it's heavily used because there's lots of complex training terminology, and some people like to throw it around. And don't get me wrong, I can be guilty of it. I'm not intentionally throwing it around. I'm just using it in a conversation, and then I'll realise what I've said to somebody who probably won't understand it, and then I'll go back to
reiterate it,
yeah.
but in not a simpler form, but a more understandable form.
I think that's the sign of somebody who's a good communicator, somebody who can break down complex ideas and make them understandable for everybody. Yeah. Like, that's it. And I've actually had an experience, I'm not going to go into who or what or where, with somebody who I've been working with, not in a training point of view, but something else. And they've got their degree in psychology, and they love to throw out extremely complex terms. And I don't have a fucking degree in psychology, but I've got a fairly decent understanding of things just from a lot of self-education that I've done over the years. And half of the stuff just is massively overcomplicated, and I know that a lot of the other people that he works with don't have a clue what he's on about. And I don't know if it's done almost as I'm
smarter than you.
Yeah, I'm smarter than you, to assert this is why you pay me, because I use these complex words, and don't bother explaining them until you ask me afterwards. I'm like, you're just a bad communicator. Like, yeah. That's all it is. And again, same with the definites. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's very few definites in the world in general. There's not that many black and white points. And again, especially with fitness, when someone's like, this is the best way to get in shape, this is the best version of this exercise, this is the best meal plan that you can follow, they're 100% talking out their arse and run away from them. Like,
yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah,
there's not one size fits all.
Yeah, and there is no best. There is not. It's all like a sliding scale of optimal to suboptimal, and everything's going to fall in between there, and that one fixed thing is going to change. Like, you might find something that is pretty optimal for you right now, but it might not be in a few years' time, or it might not be in a week's time. So, just avoid. But the trouble is, especially with social media, that's what grabs people's attention. So people that kind of gain quite a lot of infamy, fame, infamy, whatever you want to say, are people that do talk in these very strong, certain terms, because people don't like ambiguity.
No, the people have a fear of the unknown, don't they? So if someone says, I have the answer for you, they'll be like, oh, okay, because I don't know. Yeah,
exactly. If someone's saying, like, oh, we can do this for you, but also this would work, but also this would work, but also this would work, it doesn't sound as sexy as somebody just telling you, no, you need to do this, this is exactly the thing that you need to do, this is the best thing that you can possibly do. Like, then they're just like, oh, right, it eliminates all other choice for me. Whereas again, like, realistically, that isn't the case. Like I said before, ideally, yes, you come into the gym, you do some form of resistance training, some form of cardiovascular training, some form of mobility work, and that would be, balanced, spread out throughout your week, well structured, and that'd be nice, right? But some people don't have time to do all that. Some people don't enjoy certain aspects of it, whether it be the lifting side of it, or the cardio, or the mobility side of it.
I think part of it as well, it stems from like being in school, because when you're in school, it's literally like 2 + 2 is 4, and there is no deviation from that. So people want that one and only answer. Whereas, like, if you look into to be fair, even when you were learning stuff in science, it was like in biology, this cell does X, Y, Z, and that is it. Whereas, like 10 years from now, or 10 years earlier on, that information is not the same now. Yeah. But you learnt it as that, and that is gospel.
Yeah, it's static now, isn't it? From that point.
Yeah, so I think that's what people have learned to when they're being taught something, is there should be only one answer, and that's what they're looking for. Whereas when you're in the actual real world, a lot of the time that's just not the case. Yeah. it is a case of there is a lot of different options that may or may not work, but you're not going to be able to find out unless you try it.
Yeah, that's it. And those are maybe a couple of warning signs just to look out for when everyone's going to be going through this minefield of social media crap for the new year when they're looking to get in shape.
Yeah.
And they're gonna see these like this is the best way to do this thing. We've got this perfect thing for you, and the only perfect plan is one that's customized to you.
Yeah.
There isn't a solid answer. If someone's telling you, oh yes, this is my product that's pre-made, you can just buy this workout plan and it is the optimal way to build muscle and burn fat and this, that and the other. So unless that's been custom built for you, it's not. And even then, it's still meh. So take it all with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, when it's custom built, that the idea of it is you're working with someone that can tweak it and change it to fit what's happening to you in real time. So working with a coach is a case of, oh, this is what we set out. However, this thing isn't working. This movement isn't optimal. So we're going to swap this for this and do that. And it's a constant learning and changing and it's progressing.
Yeah, it's based on feedback. I always say when I'm talking to our clients, it's not just you learning from the coach. The coach is also learning from you. So they need to understand what you respond well to from a training point of view, what you actually enjoy doing, what your mobility is like, how you actually can move. There's so many things that you can actually pick up on in sessions over time, like what that training plan looks like day one to 2-3 months down the line are going to be pretty drastically different, because at the start it's got to be fairly generic, because there's only so much information that we can gather in a consultation, right? There's only so much we can talk about, and I can get a list of any previous injuries, any mobility issues, any kind of previous sports or things that you've done in the past, so we might have an idea of where your level of fitness is at. But we come out to the gym and it could all go out the window, and that happens all the time, and that's fine. That's normal to then just be like, right, okay, this is the plan. We need to make some adjustments straight away. So tweak, and then 2 weeks later it's already fairly different, but it's still not optimal yet. And it's just feedback, and that's kind of going back to what I said earlier with you as an individual training. Like, you need to learn that mindset at the start. If you work with the coach, they can do a lot of that for you. But if you're ever going to be independent, which is obviously the goal for everyone, is to not need a coach. You should be able to do your own thing eventually. You need to kind of start to be analytical with your training and think, okay, what worked well, what didn't work so well, what do I enjoy, what don't I enjoy, what fits in with my lifestyle, all of these factors, and just constantly try and refine, because everything's moving. There's lots of cogs moving.
I think for a lot of people as well, having a coach, it's like a two-sided coin, isn't it? It's a case of not knowing what to do, but then learning that knowledge. But then, like you said, having the time to do it. So having a coach frees up that time. So if you are able to do that, that'll give you more time to do other stuff. Yeah. But if you want to be self-sufficient, you need to be able to put time and effort into writing your own program, seeing what's working for you and what's not working for you, then going away and researching it, either why it's not working for you or finding something different that's going to progress you without obviously hindering your training. Yeah.
Well, that's actually probably one of the big things that we've done now, because I meet with our coaching clients in person, and before we start working with them, and now I've stopped taking on any clients that don't want to learn. Because like, we want to actually educate you on how to train and set you up for long-term success. If they're just like, oh, I don't want to know about it, I just want the coach to show me what to do, I'll be like, well, no, this is the wrong fit. You can go work with somebody else, because that's not what I'm interested in. Because and we've done it in the past. We did it, a few years back, and those people don't stick around, because
they literally do the program for the 12 weeks, and then they drop down and it's going, oh, I can do it by myself, then we don't see them again. And it's like, well, we try and get contact with you. Do you want to come back? Do you need any help with anything? No, I can do it. And then we just don't see them again. Yeah,
it's because you need to actually want to be educated on it. If you don't treat it as a learning process, then the coach can't do everything for you. There's always going to be an element of education to it, and once you just dip your toe in, it gets so much easier in the long run. So I don't even bother anymore. It's literally, I don't want to waste somebody's money. I don't want to waste our time.
I think they find it more enjoyable when they're learning about it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why we get so much better results now, just because I really push that point. And then if it's if someone wants everything done for them, they've got the wrong kind of mindset from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not going to be the long-term goal hitting.
No, not at all. Right, so it's about an hour now. I'm going to wrap up. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments or drop us a DM, whatever else. Who is this?
It's a ghost.
Is that you, Kiri?
So yeah, if you've got any questions or comments about the podcast, just drop them in the comments below. Oh, fuck!
There we go.
I was so close!
Yeah. There we go. It's all done.
Oh, fuck.
We've completed it now.
We can edit that out.
No, we're not editing it out. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to just randomly put it.
Well, just constantly.
Yeah, the entire time I'm just going to have Liam just there with his finger guns. They're kind of finger guns anyway. But yeah, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, do all that good stuff. See you on the next one. Bye.